What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. It's a fun Monday morning. I'm about to record my podcast with the Coach Crowder. So if you're watching this later on Monday, make sure you go check that out on YouTube. He posts on his channel, and I'll also tweet out as well. But that aside, week one of the Major 3 qualifiers just happened this weekend. It was an absolute banger, and then ended on a lot of Twitter drama. So we'll get to that in a bit. But as always, guys, on Mondays, we kind of give you our takeaways, give you the tier list. So let's go take a look at the list, see what tweaks we need to make to go ahead and round this out following those matches. All right, so here is the list that we made after the Major 2. If you've never watched my tier list videos before, I don't do the S through F stuff. We break them into 4 categories: Sunday regulars, or your top 4 teams, potential contenders, or sort of everybody else in the top 6, top 8 teams going to champs, basically. Work to do are teams on the cut line that usually have 1 or 2 major flaws they need to work on, maybe one person. The missing pieces are teams that just really aren't competitive to the top end of things. Maybe they can get an upsetter here, but they're mostly going to be teams that are going to pull up on Friday at an event and, well, not win a series. We'll start with Atlanta FaZe. 1-1 weekend for them. They absolutely choke slammed Florida, not even close in their first series of the weekend. And then they played a pretty gritty one against Thieves, which they lost 1-3. They lost all of the respawns in that series. I think for FaZe, clearly the hard point is still a little bit iffy. I think their control is actually not too bad, and they actually match up well against Thieves. In general, with teams in control, they're a little bit above 500 in that game, but hard point is still an issue for them in matches. And I asked Slasher about this last night on the flank, and he said that he doesn't think the results in matches have really translated to their practice, but which we're just fine with. I totally understand that, but want to see them during this split get a little bit better at hard point and start kind of expanding that map pool, especially online. I know they have bread and butters against most teams on like Embassy and Mercado. Against Thieves, they have a hard time though winning those hard points, so something they need to work on. But they're still going to stay in your Sunday regulars as well. And I think on that note, we move over to LA Thieves, who also went 1-1 this week after an absolute, I don't want to say stinker against Vegas, because I think Vegas played pretty good in that series, but I think that was an upset that really no one saw coming. They had a good rebound, obviously, against FaZe. And just like FaZe, I think they have some weaknesses in their map pool. I think S&D is still a major problem for this team. Against FaZe, they're just wholly uncompetitive in search. Vegas was a team that kind of took them down on a CeeLo as well. They just have this really tiny map pool in search. They're pretty decent at hotel in matches, but they have to get rid of Mercado as an auto veto. And then they really kind of struggle to play other maps against teams because of that auto veto. So I think they need to really, in order, I think, to really kind of be dominant against a team like FaZe and Optic, I think they're going to have to really get good at all 5 S&D maps. Their situational search play is still like a little bit iffy in this game. I know that was their issue at the beginning of last year. Their 4v3 percentage wasn't that good. Their retake percentage wasn't that good, and they got better at it over the year. But right now, they're sort of in the same boat, and S&D is a definite area of improvement that they needed to work on. But like with FaZe, they are good enough that they take down pretty much most teams. They're going to be in Sunday regulars. And I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't talk about all the Atlanta FaZe LA Thieves drama on Twitter. Basically, Draza, after the series, accused Celium of doing a stair glitch. And then Slasher responded with video clips showing that he wasn't doing it. And then there were some accusations of people taking substances, and then associated persons with the team's girlfriends and friends were taking shots on Twitter. I don't know, man. It's just a mess between these two teams. Clearly, there's a lot of passion. I think they both feel it's a rivalry now, but that was mixing on Twitter. It was fun to watch after the series, but a little bit of a distraction from what I think is probably our best rivalry right now in the CDL. I think Optic may have something to say about that in the next few weeks, but right now, Atlanta FaZe and Thieves are probably the most fun one to watch. And let's talk about Optic Gaming, since we just mentioned them there. They had only 1 series this week. They're going to have 2 each weekend, the rest of the qualifiers. If as a reminder, they play 5 games. So there's always going to be 1 week where you only have 1 match, and this was it. And they played LAG, and I'll be honest, in this series, I do think that LAG probably should have won this one 3-1. I know some Optic fans in the comments may disagree and say, well, we played really good in the game 5. I just think the way that game 4 end played out, LAG probably should have closed that one out if all they did was really push out or watch front. Outside that, I don't think they looked that bad with Dan. That first map hotel looked really good. I think the search was a little funky in Mercado, but they look great on CeeLo. Control a little bit iffy, but again, new player, not that much practice. Totally understand that. So like this Optic team, good victory against LAG. They have a tricky schedule coming up with Toronto, Rocker, New York, and FaZe. But I'm going to leave Optic and Sunday regulars, especially with this home event in Major 3, especially the talent on this team. I think they're going to be a mainstay right now in this area. Next team that we have in Sunday regulars, and unfortunately I'm going to need to move them down a tier, is the Minnesota Rocker, who went 0-2 this week, losing to New York and Seattle. They actually got 3-0'd pretty bad by Seattle, and the New York series went to game 5. Round 11, in which Minnesota, I think kind of trolled that round 11, to be honest. Listen, as you guys know, I am not a big fan of the offensive team in a round 11 doing a do-nothing strat. I'd rather see a team lose being aggressive than a team lose by doing nothing, and they did nothing. Fortress is a hard map to plant the bomb, but go back and watch the round. I think they had opportunities to plant it. They just had a tough one with the nerves. I don't think Afro also had a great weekend. Bance, I don't think played good in the first series, but played good in the second series. So I don't know, man. This Rocker team is so weekend to weekend. It's just hard to rate them. And for me to consistently put them in my top 4, I'm going to slide them down over here. We're going to shuffle this tier a bit because we'll get to some of the performances of these teams. But Rocker is definitely still a top 6, top 8-ish team. I don't know, though. And I have a question if that performance from Major 2 is repeatable, considering some of the other squads that they're going to have to compete with at this level. All right, now we're back down to the potential contenders level. And we have the New York Subliners, who went 2-0 this week, beating Rocker and Florida. A very surprising went 3-0 in S&D this week, which I think is extremely tippable, winning Hotel, Mercado, and Fortress. So they did it across 3 different maps. In general, I mean, this team looks really good. They lost both hard points to Rocker, which was very weird, but they look good against Florida in hardpoint, and they did win both controls. So liking the progress from the New York boys. I want to put them in Sunday regulars. Yeah, let's do it. They may fluctuate up and down a bit, but if they improve their search, I really like their matchup against some of these top 3 teams and the way that they play Respawn. I'm sticking my neck out on this one. So I know the New York boys that are always in my chat, Kiz, Skies, D-Real, Sender, Paco, my boy P-Dog. I'm putting you guys in the top 4, so don't disappoint me on this one. But right now, I feel pretty good about the New York squad and some of the progress they made. After a Major 2 performance, I don't think they were happy about. I know they had some issues traveling to that event, but their search in general wasn't particularly good in Stage 2. So they seem to have improved that, which is going to vastly improve their chances at Major 3. Next up, we have Toronto Ultra. A bit of an interesting journey for them over the course of the last 3 or 4 days. They lost a tough one to Boston on Friday, and then Saturday they made a roster change, benching Standy for Hixie. An interesting move. I don't think anyone really saw that coming. And then they took care of it against Vegas, winning both hard points pretty handily and taking a round 5 in control. This search is still a bit iffy for this team. And that's got me a little bit concerned and why I can't really bump them up to Sunday regulars. But, just there's something going on in this camp. I said it during the Major 2 post tier list video that I thought something was kind of a miss to the Toronto team. It seems like that's the case because they made that Standy swap after going on their 9-map losing streak. Curious to see what Toronto's going forward. Curious to see how Hixie plays the team going forward with more practice. But a situation to watch this Toronto team. All right, next up we have the Boston Breach. And like I said, they did beat Toronto on Friday. And then in the weekend, they actually went to game 5 with the London Royal Ravens. I thought London actually played really good in that series in general and really kind of battled hard, especially in S&D and that Mercado hardpoint that I thought London played very good. But at the end, Boston was too much in search. And I think London also was kind of screwing up the embassy, but I got to tip Boston for how aggressive they were playing that map. And so Boston went 2-0 this week, which I respect a lot, coming in and playing with Beans, who was filling in for while replacing Methods, who's now retired and off doing Scump watch parties and Optic content. So like what I saw from Boston, like FaZe, they have a little bit of a easier schedule than most teams. They have LAG, Florida, and Thieves left. So Boston's probably going to get a high seed for this major. I just think where do I put them relative to Minnesota and Toronto is a little bit tricky right now. I'm going to move Toronto here. And then for now, I'll put Boston here. I mean, this is the problem with these tier rankings and power rankings is I can just shuffle people through tiers after each weekend. I feel like Boston's maybe, with this team, probably the 5th or 6th best team. I mean, all 3 of these teams are potential contenders right now are really good enough to make it to a Sunday. It just really depends on what version of the team you get on a given day. But so far, liking the move from Boston, I've been someone that said that Beans is going to come in and be a difference maker. He had a little bit of an iffy first series, was good in search in that series, and then played much better in the second series. I think y'all are going to love to learn Ben, and I'm a big fan of him and his sniper in search. So congrats to Boston on going 2-0 this week. All right, next up we have Los Angeles Guerrillas, who currently are on a little bit of a slide. Near the middle of the major 2 qualifiers, they got reversed by FaZe. They lost twice at Toronto, beat Vegas at the event, and then lost to Boston. So they're 1, 2, 3, 4. They lost 4 of the last 5, and now they've lost 5 of the last 6 with this Game 5 loss to Optic. So on a little bit of a slide for LAG. I'm going to have to slide them behind these 2 teams, and we'll get to that in a second. You know, for me, I'm not really sure what's going on with the squad. Don't look as competitive as they did during their honeymoon phase, and something seems to be amiss. I don't know if teams have sort of figured out their map pool. Their search has been, I think, in general, not really that good. They went 4-7 during stage 2. They were also 2-6 in control. They did win their CDL control against Optic this weekend, but Optic's control, and I didn't talk about it during the single Optic, but it's poor, and we probably want to watch going forward. And they did split the searches, but overall, outside of Hardpoint, it's a little bit iffy. And on top of that, they didn't win either Hardpoint in that Optic series. So I don't know what's going on with LAG. And the way that Vegas is playing, we'll get to them in a second in Seattle. I just don't know if LAG really can stack up to them. So unfortunately, they're going to slide down a little bit after I lost to Optic. Keeping it moving, we got the Seattle Surge, who this weekend finally won an S&D online against the Minnesota Rocker in a convincing fashion. In a good fun series. First map was very close on Hydro, but then the next 2 maps were not close. So a big win for Seattle. I'm going to leave them in that spot right now and work to do. I don't want to bump them up a tier just yet because they only played 1 game this weekend. But if they have continued to improve their search, we know how good they are in respawn. This team will move up these rankings pretty quick. So let's see what they do going forward. They have double match weeks coming up. First against Thieves and Florida. Then the final week will be against London and New York. So there's some very winnable matches for Seattle. They should make winners with the schedule. Let's see how they continue to play, especially in Search and Destroy. And speaking of Search and Destroy, let's talk about the Vegas Legion. They went 1-1 this week, beating LA Thieves 3-1. Surprisingly, that result. And then they lost to Toronto in a series that I think they could have probably been forced to Game 5. They got smoked on the hotel. That was not even close. They beat Toronto on a CDL S&D. Control went to a Game 5. And then the Hydro Hardpoint, they lost by 50. But I honestly think that Vegas was trying to actively throw that map at all times based on the way that ended. And if they had gone to a Game 5, I think they had a really good shot of winning that series. So I like the progress from Vegas. It's not enough for me to say, oh, they're a contender now. But they're off, I think, the bottom of the league. And they're in a good spot now to start fighting for a champ spot. And so I like the progress. Their schedule coming up is not easy, though. They have FaZe, Rocker, and LAG. I see the LAG match being really winnable for them. 2 wins might be enough. It depends on how they do in the other series, but I can now see this Vegas team maybe getting that last eighth and last spot potentially for the qualifier, because Rocker's in a really tough start with the 0-2. I think everybody else at Sunday regulars, Boston and Toronto, are probably good for him to make the bracket. It's going to probably come down to Rocker, Seattle, and Vegas for that last spot at Major 3 in winners bracket. And then the bottom 2 teams, I don't think the order of those teams really changes all that much. We got Florida, who did not win a single map this weekend against FaZe and New York. I think the jury's still out on this team. They got absolutely like one of the worst draws you can get for a new team week 1, and they had no honeymoon factor in either of those series. So I don't know what to think. They could be really bad. They could be worse than the last team, or they could be really unlucky and they just had a really tough draw. They have Boston, Seattle, and LAG coming up, so it's not going to get really any easier. Let's see what happens with them next week, but they're still rock bottom, unfortunately, the league with London. Let's talk about them. We talked about it earlier with Boston. I do think that London probably wants this series back because of how poorly they played that last map. Like, I just don't understand how your embassy offense, you just don't change up in the middle of the map. Like, Nero's going middle, you're stunning him every round. And offense, you're just not crossing and checking it. Like, I don't understand the thought process from London. They're just finding new and different ways to lose. The map 1 was also really tough. They just didn't watch Wine Cut or like Kitchen Connector to watch Wine Cut, and they got broke on the final like P5. So, man, I don't really know with this London team. It's really tough to watch them lose a series like that. And for that, I think they're still rock bottom with so much to do to even get competitive in the league. So yeah, I think these are the rankings. I feel really good about FaZe, Thieves, and Optic in top 3. New York, I think between them, Boston, Rocker, and Toronto look best to kind of round out top 4. So I put them up there. But those 3 teams are kind of next. I think Seattle could definitely jump up. Vegas kind of remains to be seen. LAG sliding the wrong way. Florida sliding the wrong way. And London still in that spot. So feel much better, I think, about these rankings right now than some other weeks. A lot of action in the CDL. this weekend. It was a really good set of matches and excited to run them back this week coming up on Friday. And by the way, speaking of that, I'm actually flying to Atlanta, Georgia on Thursday. Myself and Tomas Paparazzo, aka Zuma, will be doing a series of streams live from the Atlanta FaZe facility. Tommy gets in on Saturday. I get in Thursday morning. So be on the lookout for those. Our watch parties and the flanks will be live from Atlanta. And then Sunday, actually, this upcoming Sunday, so in 5 days, I'm getting my head shaved by Celium, paying off the bet I made with Aches live from that facility. So make sure you tune in Sunday morning. I think we're going to probably get things going about 10 or 11 with that. So make sure you tune in that morning to see me turn bald. We're within the final week of me having hair. So it's kind of hilarious. As always, let me know in the comments what you think of the tier list. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and we'll see you guys on the next one.